everybody, it's Matthew, also known as Mr. Domestic, here to share with you another video on English paper piecing. Now this video is going to show you how to square off a block when you're using non-square shapes. And I'm going to do this in two ways. The first one is going to be after you've pieced all of your shapes together, and I'm going to show you how to square this off to where you can still English paper piece it to another block. And then the second way is going to be showing you how to square off a block before you baste to ensure that you have the right size and a square block in the end. So if that's what you're here for, then stick around for some fun. Okay, so the first way that I'm going to show you how to square off an English paper piecing block whenever you use non-square shapes is if you've already extended beyond what you need. So here I used 1-inch hexagons, and I did the number of hexes to go beyond the 12-inch perimeter that I needed for the overall block. So what you need here, you're gonna need a steam iron, which I have on the side. You'll need a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. I'm going to cut this into a 12-inch block. That's what I need. So what I did here is I took two pieces of 11 by 8.5 cardstock, then I taped them together where the cuts were to make one larger 12 by 12-inch piece of cardstock. And then you're going to need a rotary cutter and your glue pen, just like you would if you were doing smaller shapes with English paper piecing. So next I'm going to show you the specific way that I iron and the papers that I specifically take out to make sure that it remains this ooh la la gorgeousness of the English paper piecing. So the first thing hopefully you'll notice here is I didn't take out all of the papers. I want it to remain the original shape, and a lot of times whenever I'm ironing I put some muscle in and I really do it and it shifts the fabric around, so I wanted to minimize this in the ironing. And I just took out the papers on the perimeter, the ones I'm going to need to refold. And how I'm going to iron it is I push down, I have it on a high steam setting. You might get some steam in the camera right now. And I don't do a lot of movement, but I just make sure that right here the pieces of fabric are going out. But then here I'm just going to push down. Ooh, look at that steam action on the camera. And that's how I iron it. And as you can see when I flip it over, ooh, get that steam away, that it stayed intact. So next I'm going to show you how I trim it and glue it onto the larger piece of cardstock. Okay, now I've brought in my hefty defty long ruler to try and get it as symmetrical as possible. This length, it's easy for me to see it because the 12 inches ends right where these hexagons would have, and I pre-measured that. But the other side would be harder to visualize whenever I'm putting the cardstock on top of it. So I found a point that I can find the opposite with, and I'm looking for 12 inches, and it was right about here where there's an inch here, and then I look over here and there's an inch there. And I centered the ruler on there, the 12 inches, so I knew where it was. And I'm just going to take a pen and mark it for the cardstock. Same here. It can be a rough estimate, but it'll measure down here. And then I'm going to cut the excess with my rotary cutter. I'm going to do larger than 1/4 inch for this larger piece just to make sure. I'll do some trimming. Let me cut away so I don't get red on YouTube. And then the same thing over here, just to cut off some of the excess so there's not any bulk in the overall project. And I'm leaving about 1/2 inch here. Remove the ruler, no longer need that. And then I'll take my cardstock and I'll put it on that, find the center here. And it's centered pretty awesomely based on the marks. And then I'm just going to glue it like I would a smaller piece on the edges. Make sure it's as flat as possible. Try not to get it too close to the edge. And the glue will keep everything there like it would a larger piece. And if you wanted to have your iron handy to set this edge, since it is larger and it has some seams in it, feel free to do so. But as you can see, the glue is doing its work right there. And I'll go ahead and I'll do the bottom. I'm using more glue here than I would on a smaller piece. because I'm more concerned about it staying in place than I am about what it's going to feel like whenever I remove it, because it's a larger piece, so the glue is going to be fine and it'll remove no problem. So these are in place, and then I will do the other sides. And I'm going to fast forward through this section so you don't have to listen to me gab too much. And now for the big reveal. I haven't even seen it myself, so we're gonna see what it looks like on the other side. Ooh la la. Look at that, and now you have a square block that you can English paper piece onto another square block, and you don't have to go over to your sewing machine. So yay! That was the first way. Now the second way is coming up. So stay along with me, yay! So the second way to square off your block with non-square shapes involves some fun math and geometry, and I know we love all of that kind of stuff, and I'm weirdly a math geek. You might not know that about me, but I'm gonna get you to where your shapes will do this before you baste it or sew it together. And I chose this. It's a third hexagon shape that forms hexagons because it's a complicated enough of a shape to where you would have to think about it, but not too complicated where you can't identify the pattern. And the first thing that I do whenever I'm planning the cut beforehand is I like to pre-tape the shapes together into a pattern. So you'll need masking tape for this. You get to watch me tape. And this helps me identify the best placement for the pattern before I make the cut. And if I don't do this, then I might be a little blind when trying to figure out where I want to make the cut. So I've already identified it, and I have my hexagons here. I now consider them hexagons and not hexagon thirds. But in the hexagon third department, there are 42. Exactly 42 2-inch hexagons, if you cut appropriately, will create a 12-inch block. So I decided that I wanted it to be symmetrical. So I'm going to lay it here. 6 is the midline. I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch it. So this here is exactly 42 hexagon thirds that if you cut appropriately, it will turn into a square 12-inch block. And if you have excess shapes, or you don't live in the Pacific Northwest like me where you're not allowed to waste paper, then you can just fill this whole board up and cut it. No big deal. But this is a way to save paper and use all your shapes. All you have to do is cut now. And I'm gonna put this here because that's where I drew the line. And then slice. Slice away. As you can see, the slicing was done. And then slice these. And then one more slice here. You see where the slice is supposed to go. And then I'll lay it out to where you can see it, what the slices did beforehand. So this is here. This will stay, this gets over here, this moves here, this moves here, this moves here. And now all you have to do is put this back. So this shape here came off the bottom of this one. Just move it here. This one here goes here. This was excess here. You just move it back over here. This was excess, move it back. This was excess, move it back. This was excess, move it back. And ta-da! Now you have a pre-basted 12-inch square without wasting any paper, that if you're kind of a math geek like me, this would really excite you. If not, and you're looking at this and you're like, what? Then maybe you just want to do it the first way that I showed you, since that's a little less brain power and it's easier to comprehend. But this is the second option for you if you wanted to pre-cut everything without wasting any paper. Yay! You did it! You did it! You did it! Now you've got yourself some larger EPP blocks that you can hand stitch together. Now, to tell you the truth, I'm probably still going to go over to my sewing machine to do it, but if you want to stay on your couch and sew these bad boys together, you've got the tools and the tips and the tricks to make it happen. So if you enjoyed this video or you had some fun, then make sure to give it the thumbs up. Keep it positive, y'all. Mr. Domestic out.